Did you know World War I was known as the war to end all wars? Yet it was anything but. It all began with a single gunshot on a sunny day in Sarajevo, June 28, 1914. The Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated, an event that would change the course of history forever. This tragic incident set off a chain of events, due to a web of intricate alliances. As a response to the assassination, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Russia, bound by treaty to Serbia, declared war on Austria-Hungary. Germany, allied to Austria-Hungary by treaty, declared war on Russia. France and Britain, allied to Russia, were then drawn into the fray. The world watched in apprehension as these powerful nations took sides, turning a regional conflict into a global one, escalating tensions to a level never seen before. By August 1914, the stage was set and the world was plunged into a war of unprecedented scale. The brutality of World War I was epitomized by the birth of a horrifying new combat style: trench warfare. This was warfare at its most brutal, a grim dance of death and destruction played out in the muddy, rat-infested trenches that scarred the landscape from the North Sea to the Swiss frontier. In the late summer of 1914, the first major battle of World War I took place on the banks of the River Marne. The Battle of the Marne was a desperate and bloody fight as both sides grappled for control. The battle ended in a stalemate, with both sides digging in and establishing the infamous Western Front, a line of trenches that would remain largely unchanged for the next 4 years. 1916 saw two of the war's most infamous battles, the Battle of Verdun and the Battle of the Somme. Verdun was a brutal slog, with both sides throwing men and material into a meat grinder of a battle that lasted for over 9 months. The Battle of the Somme was no less horrific, with over 1 million casualties on both sides. It was here that the tank made its battlefield debut, a new and terrifying weapon that promised to break the deadlock of trench warfare. Yet even the introduction of new technologies like tanks and chemical weapons didn't tip the balance decisively in favor of either side. These new weapons brought new horrors, but they did not bring a swift end to the war. The trenches of the Western Front became a symbol of the war's futility, a meat grinder that consumed men and material with a grim and relentless efficiency. Despite the enormous loss of life, the war was at a stalemate, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The brutality of trench warfare, the bloody battles, and the horrific loss of life were all testament to the fact that this was a war unlike any other. A war that changed the world forever. In 1917, a significant shift occurred. The United States entered the war. This fresh influx of troops and resources tipped the balance in favor of the Allies, providing a much-needed boost in morale and firepower. Meanwhile, Russia, overwhelmed by internal strife, withdrew from the conflict due to the Bolshevik Revolution. The war's momentum swung back and forth. In the spring of 1918, Germany launched a massive offensive, hoping to break the stalemate, but they overextended and the Allies, rejuvenated by American soldiers, launched counter-offensives, pushing the Germans back. Throughout the summer and fall, the Allies continued to regain ground. The Central Powers were crumbling. Germany, facing internal unrest and a failing war effort, sought an armistice. And so, on November 11, 1918, the leaders of both sides signed a ceasefire agreement. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns fell silent, marking the end of a war that had forever changed the world. The war to end all wars had ended, but its impact was far from over. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in the Palace of Versailles' Grand Hall of Mirrors, marked the official end of the war. Yet, its terms were controversial. Germany, burdened with the blame for the conflict and saddled with heavy reparations, was left dissatisfied and resentful. The war's toll was immense. Millions of lives were lost, and the societal fabric of many nations was forever altered. The age-old empires of Europe crumbled, giving rise to new political ideologies and structures. Women, having taken on roles traditionally held by men during the war, began to demand greater rights and freedoms. Technological advancements, spurred by the necessities of warfare, revolutionized industry and daily life. World War I, a conflict of unprecedented scale and devastation, set the stage for even greater turmoil in the decades to follow.